Hello, everybody. Welcome into a special edition of Chase the Championship. We're live here at the Orange Bowl. Brandon Adams, happy to be joined by Dog Nation's Mike Griffith, who's working the phone with the sources even as we speak. Georgia obviously getting ready for the game against the Michigan Wolverines on Friday, national semifinal in the college football playoff. We're going to talk about what we learned about UGA today with a chance to hear from Kirby Smart, a couple of Georgia players, a chance for Georgia to have, I guess, what will be like its last intense practice with kind of walkthrough style practices tomorrow, which is the day before the game. It's always weird when you play on a day that's other than Saturday. It takes your mind a little while to kind of process what's going on here, but tomorrow will essentially be Georgia's Friday with the game itself actually taking place on the actual Friday. We'll talk about what we did learn today on that. Of course, remind you the Chase the Championship brought to you by Kroger and Marlowe's Tavern, Georgia Farm Bureau, R.S. Andrews, as we look ahead to the college football playoff. And I guess we'll start with this. Kirby Smart speaking today, in a lot of ways kind of reiterating a lot of what Todd Monken had said the day before when it comes to quarterback situation, which has been obviously a hot topic here for this time. You know, Smart once again reiterating that Stetson Bennett is going to be Georgia's starting quarterback for this game against the Wolverines.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a question, but Kirby kind of initiated it, as you said, B.A., and I asked the question about making a change at quarterback. Kirby says, you know, hey, this is like any other position, but is it really when it comes to making a change? And he said, no, you know, it's really not, because he is the face of the team and there are so many other things involved. And then he just glided right back into talking about Stetson and JT. So he kind of initiated the talk, and he looked like he wanted to give Todd Monken a hug, because Todd Monken answered all the questions that he wouldn't all year long, and he said a lot of the same things that Kirby Smart said. And that's what you hire him to do, right? I mean, that's what Todd's getting paid to do. But make no mistake about it, Georgia has two options. And as Kirby said today, it would take certain circumstances for JT to get in. I think we know what those are, but it does indicate that he's leaving the door open to play him if need be. He didn't slam the door shut. Now, do we think he'll go through with it? We don't know. Did he learn anything from the SEC championship game? Would he do it differently if he could do it again? We don't know the answers to those questions, Brandon, but at the very least, Kirby said, hey, that there was a circumstance where JT could play.
They also brought up the idea of JT Daniels' health. I said on Dog Nation earlier this morning that I presume that's related to the COVID issue that kept Daniels away from the team when the team arrived here earlier this week. Daniels and George Pickens obviously were not here. Can you shed more light on this, though, for us in terms of how much has the COVID issue that Daniels has gone through, how much has that taken him away from the team, and how much has that taken him away from the practice field in particular?
Yeah, well, here's kind of the good news, bad news kind of situation. So JT's kind of the microwave. They know they can stick JT in there. As Todd Monken said yesterday, JT made all the meetings virtually. He did miss some reps, but JT has shown a propensity. He knows the playbook. He knows the offense, and he's a guy that can heat it up pretty quick. We saw that against Mississippi State a year and a half ago. We saw that after he missed the UAB game. He came out and played pretty dynamic this season. Last time we saw him start a game, he was 9-10 against Vanderbilt and didn't look that bad against Missouri. Had a pass tipped at the line of scrimmage. So I don't think there's a big concern there. Now, the bad news is, Brandon, some of the news that we reported on Dog Nation earlier this week, we broke the story that there were several players who were experienced COVID-like symptoms here that were on site. And Kirby acknowledged today that they're aiming to having everyone 100%, which would indicate that they currently don't. And I don't think this is exclusive to Georgia. I've heard from Michigan sources that Michigan also has some guys a little sniffly, a little stuffed up with COVID-like symptoms. Now, you can't call it COVID. It could be just a cold. You never know. It could be allergies. You don't know, because they're not going to test these guys if they're vaccinated, because they don't have to. But there are some concerns and some questions.
And also it could, by the way, just be a cold, too.
Sure, both teams could have a lot of cold symptoms.
But I mean, that's a thing that happens.
It is a thing that happens, but I do think that there's room to speculate. And the fact that Kirby said, by his words today, that they're aiming to have everybody ready indicates that they currently don't have everyone healthy.
I want to talk about this on both the Georgia side and the Michigan side for a moment. On the Georgia side, first, I think for a lot of Georgia fans, they've kind of come to grips with the fact that in terms of how healthy Georgia is, how ready Georgia is, that we won't really know for sure until you see those players out there on the field for the pregame warm-ups. This is obviously not an SEC road game. Georgia can travel more than 70. I saw the video that you got here before I did earlier this week. When you see those players getting off the bus, you can't really roll call all of them. They have masks on, but you are definitely noticing that it's 3 buses full. It's a lot of players walking through. Brian Gant shot the video of the yacht dinner they had. I think it was, Sunday night, first night they were here. Once again, he goes all the way through the yacht. Once again, you can't really take roll call when you're in a situation like this, but you're noticing it's a lot of players. I mean, it's most of the team that's here. I don't know that Georgia's certainly dealing with a large number of absences. We may find out that a key player is not able to play or a key player is not healthy. But for the most part, whether it be the video that you shot, the video that Brian Gant shot, you do get the impression that the overwhelming majority of this team is here and ready to go. And we'll find out, is that 100%? Are all hands on deck? We'll obviously find that out on Friday, but it certainly does not appear that Georgia's dealing with any kind of major outbreak. I think you would agree with that.
Oh, I would agree with that. I think they're here. I just don't know how healthy they are. I think everyone is here, all present, accounted for. On the Michigan side, though, I got to jump ahead a little bit. The breaking news today that Michigan's starting safety may not be here, and that's big problems because that's Brock Bowers. That's the guy that would be chasing Brock Bowers around. That's an all Big Ten safety, second on their team in tackles, second on their team in interceptions, second in pass breakups, and he's not here. And they pressed some of the players, and the players all referred the question to Harbaugh. So the question is, does he arrive and does he play? And if Michigan is losing their all Big Ten safety, that really opens the door for matchup issues, as Brock Bowers, as we know, can really destroy opposing defensive backs.
So the name we're talking about here is Dax Hill, the very impressive Michigan safety. And as you said, it was interesting. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of the media events that happen for the Orange Bowl coincide with the normal time we're on the air for Dog Nation Daily. So when the Michigan players were speaking, we were in the process of actually beginning our show, and as they were asked about Hill, every single one of them, for the most part, and you may correct me on this, but I believe every single player that was asked about Hill deflected that to Jim Harbaugh, which I think would lead most inquiring minds to assume, well, I guess Hill must not be here, because if he was here, it would be very easy for the players to shoot that down and say, oh, yeah, he's fine, he's ready to go. The fact they referred that back to the head coach leads you to infer something on that, and if that's true, if he really isn't here, it's almost like an about face from them. It's been kind of a weird thing to watch the Michigan media on the Hill story the last couple of days, because what is today, Wednesday? You go back to Monday, a lot of negativity of, oh, he didn't travel, he's not here. Yesterday, there was some chatter of, well, actually, may be here. Maybe they thought the 5-day, CDC change to the quarantine rule or whatever else was going to aid him. And then, lo and behold, today, at least based on what happened this morning, it seems like the arrow is kind of pointed back in the direction of, no, actually, he may not really be here for this game, which, as you said, when it comes to Brock Bowers, what he's capable of doing, or in a game like this where you do expect both teams to throw some haymakers on both sides of the ball, to be down one of your playmakers on defense, obviously a loss for the Wolverines if that does indeed turn out to be true.
Yeah, and apparently he also missed a media availability last week, which was what kind of raised the red flag on everyone. Georgia, by the way, Kirby Smart saying today that Jamari Salyer, who was available to the media, we saw Jamari, sounded good. Christopher Smith earlier indicated he wasn't 100%, but Kirby said that he thinks both of these guys are ready to go. We know how important Christopher Smith is to Georgia. I think it's fair to say that Dax is equally important to the Michigan Wolverines.
And I guess my assumption is, and maybe I'm wrong for assuming, but I sort of get the impression that Salyer may be a little healthier than Smith is. When I heard I don't want to make a comparison with the two injuries. I guess what I'm trying to say is this, is that when I heard Christopher Smith the other day when he spoke during the defensive players press conference, and you kind of touched on this a moment ago, it certainly didn't fill Georgia fans with full confidence that he feels 100% right now. We saw him hobbling around pretty good before the game against Charleston Southern. He's been kind of dealing with that since then, and even now, these few weeks later, maybe he's sandbagging, but that seems, hard to imagine. He's sandbagging to such a degree. It seems like Georgia's going to try to find a way in the secondary one more time without a fully healthy Christopher Smith, which is not an easy task.
No, not an easy task at all. And one of the things Michigan does, even though they're known as a downhill team, they do lead the nation in plays over 50, 60, and 70 yards. They'll do that with not only misdirection, but also trickery. And that's where those experienced eyes, that eye discipline that Kirby Smart talks about, so important to have some experienced guys back there that will stay true to their reads, because Michigan will take advantage of a team that's overly aggressive or that doesn't play their assignment. So something to look for there on both teams. The safety position, I know we've talked so much about the quarterbacks, we haven't really talked about the defenses, and really, BA, this really strikes me as a game as who blinks first, who makes the most mistakes. I think it comes down to turnovers. I'm sure somebody will win at the line of scrimmage. Right now, that looks like a wash to me. Michigan leads the nation with only 10 sacks allowed, among Power 5 teams, only 10 sacks allowed. I don't think Georgia can hit home on the quarterback without the benefit of a blitz, and I don't think Kirby's going to bring those extra guys and leave himself vulnerable on the back end. Likewise, on the other side, I know Michigan has 2 top 10 defensive ends, and yet I still think Georgia's pass protection is good enough and Stetson is mobility enough, or JT with a quick enough release. I don't think Michigan is going to disrupt the Georgia pass game without the benefit of the blitz. I expect both of these staffs to lay back and try to get pressure with their 3-4 down linemen, not bring the extra body, and wait for the other quarterback to make the mistake.
Guatemala Mike in our YouTube comment section. By the way, we got Mike and me here. We don't get a chance to do a lot of shows together like this, so we'll take a few of your comments here, and then we'll roll on. It's Chase for the Championship, brought to you by Kroger, Marlowe's Tavern, and Georgia Farm Bureau. Of course, R.S. Andrews on hand there as well. A few comments, then we'll bounce out of here. Guatemala Mike bringing up the division that seems to have erupted amongst some Georgia fans related to those that just can't quite come to grips with the talking points from Kirby and Monken yesterday related to the quarterback situation, and those that kind of want to just make the best of the situation, whatever it is, and obviously get ready to root Georgia what they hope is a win here against the Michigan Wolverines. I started my show today by saying that I don't think I've ever felt more disconnected from my audience than I do right now. And maybe it's the location. When you're in South Florida, when the weather's beautiful, it's easy to get more excited. Maybe the location makes that easier. But you know, as recently as this week, as recently as yesterday, after the Todd Monken press conference, there are clearly still some Georgia fans who have just not quite shaken off the disappointment of having lost Alabama.
It was stunning. It really was stunning. I can't remember the last time that I saw a team lose. I think I would have to equate it to maybe 2014 when Michigan State upset Ohio State. I mean, look, we all just knew that Georgia and Kirby Smart had Nick Saban in Alabama right where they wanted him. Bama was coming off 3 games decided by 7 points or less. They were shut out for 3 quarters at Auburn. I was there to cover it. I couldn't believe my eyes to see Alabama put 31 points on the board, 7 of those points compliments of a pick 6. You don't expect to see that. As good and as well as Georgia was playing, everything seemed to be in their favor. They had 2 cream puff games. They were able to rest players. They were able to get dialed in. There was absolutely no excuse. But the bottom line, and nobody likes to hear it, nobody likes to say it, hey, look, those guys get paid to win money too, and Nick Saban is the best coach in college football, and his staff did a better job than the Georgia staff, and they played better than Georgia that day. And that's a big part of this, BA. We see that with these bowl games that are going, wow, the SEC's 0-4. Well, guess what? Teams don't always play at their best, and after a long physical season, some of these kids aren't all in. The good news is college football playoff is different. All these guys want to be here. They are dialed in. This is a lifelong dream that's 2 games away, and for all the stuff that's happened to Georgia. And let's say this, is even though everybody wanted to hand them the trophy at halftime of the Georgia Tech game, this program has been through a lot. Whether it was Eric Gilbert not making it in the program, Scott Cochran leaving the program, you lost a coach, the off-field issue with Adam Anderson, we've seen injuries to Tyke Smith, the quarterback situation with JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett, revolving door. This program has dealt with a lot of adversity, and yet here they are with the big trophy still in their grasp.
Shabazz Ali talking about the COVID situation. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I believe I'm right about this, that Florida set another record today for total number of cases, that we have a lot of cases of this out there. And for Georgia, no doubt, they're dealing with some COVID cases. It just seems to be, unless I'm no epidemiologist or however you say that word, but there just seems to be a lot of that in the air right now. I think the issue, though, and this is kind of something you touched on a moment ago, the issue is who's sick. You know, the issue is not who maybe has it, because if they're vaccinated, we may never know that, because these are young, healthy players who, you know, likely will shake this off and not feel any after effects from it. But there are people that are going to get sick. Apparently, JT Daniels must have been sick. That's what led him to be, you know, tested. At least I'm led to believe, based on the COVID protocols. So the issue kind of comes down to not who might test positive, because that won't really be all that relevant, but who's sick enough that their play could be impacted. And as we said, I guess we'll find out on Friday if that is indeed the case for any Georgia Bulldog play.
Yeah, we'll find out on game day, like you said, exactly who's 100%. And being a little bit off can mean being a lot off when the level of competition is this close between the teams. I mean, this Michigan offensive line, I mean, these guys are big, they're physical, and I don't think Georgia has seen an offensive line this good. Conversely, I don't think that Michigan has seen a front 7 this good that Georgia's going to present. Again, I think it comes down to the quarterbacks, Cade McNamara, Stetson Bennett. Who blinks first? Who makes the mistake? And then, as Jim Harbaugh and Kirby Smart play 3-dimensional chess, who has the answers? Who can adjust? I like the amount of weapons that Georgia has. Yes, they can pound it. Zamir White, James Cook, but Kendall Milton's back. He'll be healthy. Kenny McIntosh has been on fire. He's a South Florida kid. A lot of people around here to impress for him. And then you got George Pickens on the perimeter. Don't forget about Jermaine Burton. And if Ladd McConkey's out of that boot, he could be good. We haven't even mentioned Brock Bowers, one of 3 finalists for Freshman of the Year today. Georgia with a lot of weaponry that they can use and a lot of different options if Michigan does take away Plan A, Plan B.
Sonia Prescott in the Facebook comment section asking about Dog Nation Daily on Friday. Sonia, I think I'm going to treat this like a normal game day, which means we may not do Dog Nation Daily on Friday. We may head to the stadium early and get some stuff done there. Let me think about that for another minute, Sonia, because I'm still trying to figure that out. Barry Watkins also mentioned the Georgia running game to go along with quarterbacks. And obviously the battle between McNamara when they bring in the young guy at quarterback a little bit compared to Stetson Bennett's going to be a pretty big deal. But when I go back and look at issues for Georgia against Alabama, things that didn't get enough attention, the fact that the Georgia running game wasn't what we as Georgia fans kind of hope it is and need for it to be in a game like that against the Crimson Tide. You can maybe make the case that Georgia kind of abandoned the run a little bit there. And the deficit obviously, led to that a bit. But, Georgia does need to run the ball better in a big spot on Friday than it did against Alabama. And for me, if I compare this playoff team for Georgia in 2021 to the one that existed for the Dogs in 2017, really the only area where I'm sure the 2017 version was better was obviously the running game. That Georgia team averaged nearly 260 yards per game on the ground when DeAndre Swift is your third-string running back. That's obviously a pretty stout, rushing situation, to say nothing of the tandem of Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. But that's a playoff team. This is a playoff team. This is the one area in which I don't think 2021, compares all that favorably to 2017. And I do think that Georgia running game has got to get it going. They got to be able to run the ball when Michigan knows that's what's coming, because in a game like this, those moments are going to be there. Now, clearly you got to throw the ball too. You got to make some explosive plays. But I want to see this Georgia team run the ball better, maybe even be more committed to the run than it was against Alabama a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and incidentally, if you go to our Dog Nation Twitter account, we actually have a poll up. Who do you take, 2017 Georgia versus 2021 Georgia, neutral site game, right? So to BA's point, that is an interesting discussion as we look at those two programs. Which would you take, 2017, 2021? Now, on the run game, I will say this. One area that Michigan has and can be exploited is on the perimeter. Their linebackers aren't supreme. They're not great. I expect to see a lot of flare passes. I expect to see some wheel routes. I think James Cook and Kenny McIntosh are going to be very involved in this game. And it may not be the hand-ups right up the middle, but I think you're going to see them press the perimeter. I see runs on the end. I think we'll see some jet sweep action as Georgia tries to take advantage of Michigan on the perimeter and take advantage of those Michigan linebackers. They aren't real good in coverage, BA. So I do think that the Georgia running backs are going to have a bigger day for the Bulldogs than they did against Alabama.
So Brian C. says, are there any Dog fans down here yet? Here's what I'll tell you. This is kind of really weird. So after we finished Dog Nation Daily today, I went down to Los Olas Boulevard, which we're in Fort Lauderdale right now. Los Olas is kind of it's sort of like the South Beach of Fort Lauderdale, for lack of a better, the way that Miami would be. South Beach, Los Olas is kind of like that for Fort Lauderdale. And, this is only a few miles away from the stadium. Not only did not see any Georgia fans, I didn't see Michigan fans either. I mean, Miami's one of those kind of weird places where, the guy that was our waiter at a restaurant we went to, I was with my family. My wife had a Georgia hat on. I had my, obviously my Georgia tropical themed shirt here. And the guy's like, he must be from Georgia. And it's like, yeah, we are. And I just assumed that he knew about the Orange Bowl. He's like, are y'all taking a cruise? I was like, no, the Orange Bowl happens like 2 days from now. So, Miami is just one of those towns, a little bit like New York City or something like that, where it's pretty easy to just kind of get swallowed up here. And as of yet, I mean, maybe you've seen, fans. As of yet, I haven't seen fans from either team. Now, maybe more of them are staying in Miami proper. Maybe that's what it kind of comes down to. But I haven't seen fans of either team yet. Miami's just kind of a different kind of town related to that. The streets were packed today, but it was all kinds of snowbirds, I think they call them. People from up north that come down here to the south. That's all that was in the streets today. There really wasn't a lot of college football stuff going on today.
See, I think they're all at South Beach and they don't wear any clothes down there, so you can't really tell unless they have tattoos what school they support. No, in all seriousness, I'm with you. It is one of those, it is an international, certainly Miami is an international city, and for those of you who've been to South Beach, it's different than Fort Lauderdale, but you're not going to see a lot of fans down there. I think a lot of the fans that are here are probably at the beach with their families. They're not out in the communities. They're not they're not doing the shopping. When you come down here, if you're now for us, we're adjacent to an airport and an interstate, so we're in the middle of kind of a concrete jungle here. I haven't really left this area too much except to go to Barry University and see the outside of the Georgia practices. So I don't know that we're really going to see a big mix, but you got to imagine that there's going to be people all over the state of Florida that are going to drive to the game. And to Brandon's point, the snowbirds. That's why Michigan fans still predict they're going to outnumber Georgia probably 2-1. I mean, you got to understand this is the biggest deal for Michigan since 1997, and this is their Rose Bowl, the equivalent of the 2017 Rose Bowl, and the way the Georgia fans roll in. I think a lot of Georgia fans also kind of sitting around going, you know what, get to Indianapolis and we'll be there.
Guatemala Mike asked about a dog walk on Friday. In these NFL stadiums, a lot of times the team will actually drive the bus into the stadium. Most college stadiums, Georgia parks on the outside and walks in, and a lot of Georgia fans typically gather there. If this NFL stadium is like some of the other NFL stadiums that Georgia's played in, for the most part, they'll drive straight in, so there won't be much of a dog walk opportunity. Now, this is my first time being at Hard Rock Stadium, but if this is like other NFL stadiums, now the Florida game is different because they designed that specifically for the players to walk in. But most NFL stadiums now, certainly Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Georgia buses essentially drive into the stadium, let the players off there because they have those huge concourses to kind of come through. I'm starting to feel a couple of raindrops. It's dark. We might as well just get off the air here. Plus, I think we're about to lose our battery anyway. So, final thought from you, Georgia, obviously. We'll hear from Kirby Smart again tomorrow. Joint press conference. He and Jim Harbaugh, seeing those two side by side should be interesting. And then after that, Georgia, for the most part, will kind of go into a hole until Friday game day. We won't hear anything from the Dogs after, about midway through the morning tomorrow. So kind of a final thought from you as these preparations get ready to wrap up.
Yeah, late in the week, I'm kind of, I was kind of in a toss-up mode all week, but I'm kind of leaning Georgia now with this Michigan safety out and what I've heard about practice and knowing that there's more options than you think on the table for Georgia. Things are coming around, and I think Kirby Smart has more options and more answers. Makes me believe that Georgia will find a way to win this football game. It sounds like Michigan, like you said, early in the week, it all sounded like Michigan was 100%, was in the bubble, and now they may be missing the most important part of their defense for this matchup with Georgia.
All right, so that's Mike Griffith. We'll have a lot more from you for the rest of the week here from the Orange Bowl down in South Florida. We're in Fort Lauderdale now, getting ready to make our way over to Miami for the game coming up in a couple of days. Dog Nation Daily tomorrow morning on site here as well. We'll let you hear from Kirby Smart, the Georgia players, and everything else that's kind of been ongoing the last couple of days. We'll do that with you tomorrow morning as a part of Dog Nation Daily. Big thanks, though, to Kroger and Marlowe's Tavern, Georgia Farm Bureau, R.S. Andrews for making Chase for the championship possible. Y'all stay close to Dog Nation throughout the next couple of days, and we'll get you ready for the Dogs and the Wolverines coming up on Friday night. Have a great evening, everybody. This has been Chase for the championship.